And we are live. Well, I'm live. And if you are watching this live, you are also live. Hello, friends, and welcome to Live Coding with me, Rachel. We're going to hop back into a project that we've been working on for a while. So for those of you that are newer to the project, the general idea of what we want to do is I would like to build a conversational assistant that allows people to answer a set of questions about words and the sounds in them, and then gives them information about which region most closely aligns with their language use. So if you're familiar with the New York Times Dialect Quiz, the idea is that you answer some quiz questions. For example, here I'd say y'all, and it says, oh, look, you're probably from the South based on our data set, which is correct. I am from the South. Good job, Dialect Quiz. So that's what we would like to build. And the reason that I was a little cagey about the specific thing that we were doing today is that I was really hoping I would get the data. So I've been emailing back and forth with Bert Vox, who collected the original data set on which the Dialect Quiz is based. And I was really hoping to get the data, and I do not have the data. So what have we built so far? We have built and deployed sort of the skeleton of the assistant, if you will. So let's switch views. Shaboom. Goodbye. We've built sort of the skeleton of the assistant. So what it'll do is, let's just quickly have an interaction. So first I need to run my actions, and this is the server that will run the code in our actions.py file here. Is it actually just actions? I think it's actually probably just actions. Good morning. Let me continue to work on my coffee. So what we have so far is we have an assistant that we successfully deployed to Alexa last week, and it is not currently up on Alexa because it's not. Sorry, that probably sounded awful. It does not work. No, that's not fair. It works. It does all the things that I expect it to do. What it does not do is actually run the quiz itself. So we have a very short form of the quiz. So in the actions.py file, we have this form that we have defined that collects 3 slots. So slots are sort of like a fill in the blank sort of thing. And we have 3 questions that we are asking about a bug, the sort of bug that rolls up into a little ball that I would call maybe like a pill bug or a roly-poly. Let me pull up a picture real quick so you can see what I am talking about. If you don't like pictures of bugs, look away now. Whoop. This guy. They're very common in the US. I think they also have them in Europe. These must be like very common worldwide. The pictures of bugs are gone now. So we have a question about that and what you call those things. We have a question about what you call a sweetened carbonated beverage. So soda, pop, Coke, all those sorts of things. And then what your second person plural is. So I was like, hey, blank, let's go to the movies. You could say y'all or yins or you guys or youans or variety of different terms that can be used there. And right now we just collect all that information. So we fill these 3 slots, and we don't have to define specifically the questions that we will ask. We do define specifically the questions that we will ask to do that, but if the user has already provided some piece of that information, so they're like, hey, I say pop, can you tell where I'm from? We would take that piece of information and put it in the beverage slot and then just ask about the bug and the second person plural slot. And all of that futzing, I guess, is defined in the form action. So we don't have to deal with any of that. That's already all implemented for us. And then, once we've collected all those 3 pieces of information from our elicitation form, we run this detect dialect action. And what it does is it runs something to the dispatcher. So this is what will send a message out to be returned to the user. That's just like, I'm working on it. And then this piece of information, this bit of code is just showing how to get information out of the slot. So the slot that we filled here, bug, this is how we would get that particular piece of information out. And then we set the dialect. So we have a new slot called dialect, and we set that to the United States. And then we always tell people that they're from the US. So this is an awful dialect quiz. We ask you 3 questions, and we always tell you you're from the US. And the first thing that I would like to do is, at the moment, well, let's run the assistant so you can see what I mean. I'm pretty sure it's run action and that I have done it wrong yet again. Action. Rasa run. Invalid choice actions. Actions.py. Oh, I'm not in the right directory. That'll do it. There we go. Yeah, no, it definitely is actions because the Python file is called actions. Yeah, okay, excellent. So now you can see we have the functions detect dialect and elicitation form as defined in our Python code here. So we need a server to run this code, and this code could be, you know, any arbitrary code you like. I am using Python because that's what I know. And let's start a, that's not how you spell shell. Let's start a session of our bot just in the shell so we can use it. Oh, apparently I'm still in the wrong directory. So it's looking for this models folder here, and it says it didn't find any models because we are not in the right directory. Again, sorry. I don't know why I'm apologizing. This is a simple mistake to make. Alright, so we're starting a server, it's running locally, and now, because I ran it as shell, I can interact with it in the shell. So, let's walk through what it's like to use this bot. So I'm going to start by saying, hi. And the dialect bot says, hi, this is a dialect bot. Do you want to take a... Oh, that's not what that says. That actually says, do you too? So maybe a little bit of cleanup can be done here in this particular utterance. Do you two take a quiz to learn more about where in the United States people talk the most like you? And I could say, no. And then it just says, you're welcome, and it ends the utterance. And I think if I say hi, it'll just sort of finish because it expects that to be done. And it knows to do that because it has seen the same thing in the story here called No Quiz. So let's restart this real quick. And let's go through a different story. And this is the happy path where someone does take the dialect quiz. So I'm going to say hi. Shalom. I'm sorry if I am saying that incorrectly. It says good morning from Manitoba. Good morning from Seattle. Now we're going to say, yes, I do want to take this quiz. So I'm going to say, I call that pill bug. And here I'm going to say something really off the wall. I'm going to say like fizzy drink. And I believe I will get an error that it doesn't understand me. Yeah. So we don't have an example called fizzy drink in our NLU here. So if we look at the examples that we have for the intent that we're using to fill our slots, all of our slots are filled using the same intent called inform here. And I have for the beverage slot, I have Coke, I have pop, I have Coke again, and I have soda. And those are all the examples that I have for my beverage slot. So if someone says something that's not in one of those slots, they're going to get an error, this error. And then they'd have to like lie and be like, oh, actually I say pop, I guess, which is not what they say. So this is something that I want to fix today. And then here, let's pretend like we're from Philly. Oh, I'd say yins. Yeah, I'm a yinzer. Not a yinzer. Excellent. And then we have our answers all returned to us, and this is more for sort of like me validating that it worked good. And then we have this information that we come from the United States, which true in my case, but not true in everybody's case. And then we say thanks, and the bot says you're welcome, and that's the end of the story, and the interaction is concluded. So, the first thing that I want to do is I want to be able to handle whatever people put in as the answer to the question. So if they say something that I would be like, oh, that's other, I want to be able to handle that. So let's check out the documentation for slots in Rasa. Pull this up. There we go. And actually, this might be easier to read if I switch to here. Okay, we are in a different window, so I'm going to go back there, and then I'll drag this over. And I realize that you cannot see that very well, and let's resize this real quick. Excellent. So, slots are where we store various pieces of information. And let me refit this again. Good morning. Where we store various pieces of information. So in this case, we have the 3 slots that we are looking for in our form, and these are bug, beverage, and second person plural. And then we have the 1 slot that we are setting, and we are doing that. We are setting the slot in, yes, in this detect dialect action, and when we run this action, we set the slot dialect to be the United States, and the slots that we have are in domain. So here are all the slots that we have in our assistant right now. So we have one called beverage, we have one called bug, we have one called dialect, and then we have one called second person plural. And these are in alphabetical order. And these are all of the same type. We have them all being unfeaturized and not auto-filled. And they're actually of 2 different types. So we have this dialect slot that we're setting. This cannot be any arbitrary value. It has to be one of the values that we have, that we will set it to in the detect dialect action, which will become more good over time. And then we have these user-filled slots, which my expectation for these is that we have a pretty good idea of sort of the range of things that people will use, right? They'll say, a lot of people will say a small number of things, but also some people will say different things, especially if they're not from the US, which is right now where I'm focusing on. So I want to be able to capture the information that they've said something that's I would categorize in other, and that could be pretty much anything. Shalom says, came to your podcast session, from your podcast session with St. Paris. Amazing work that you do, by the way. Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. So, Other types of slots that you can have. Categorical or bool here is Boolean. Boolean? I feel like I've heard both. Floats, lists, and unfeaturized, which is what we have right here. You can also provide an initial value for your slot in your domain file, which is this domain.yaml file. And this will be created when you initialize your bot using Rasa init, I-N-I-T. Set slots from NLU. If your NLU model picks up an entity and your domain contains a slot with the same name, the slot will be set automatically. So that's what's happening here. In this case, you don't have to include the slot part in your story because it is automatically picked up. So in our NLU file here, we have a bunch of examples. What's this called? Way that word written. This syntax? Punctuation syntax? Formalization? There's a specific word I'm looking for and I don't know. I'm having a hard time reaching for it, but this square brackets, round brackets, the square brackets is the text of the entity, and then the round bracket is the, whatever's in the round bracket is the name of the slot. And because we have the slots defined and also examples of entities with those slots in them, we don't have to do a lot of hand picking out of the text. It's all just sort of done for us, which is nice. All right. To disable this behavior for a particular slot, you can set autofill attribute to false in the domain. Okay, so this initial value, going back to the domain. Okay, so the autofill here is not done, but it is filled via the form. So that is still handled for us, but we don't have initial text before we get started. All right. Let's set slots by clicking buttons. We don't want to do this because this will eventually be a voice skill, and I don't even know how that would work. How you would click a button with your voice. But if you're using a text-based assistant, buttons can be really nice. All right, set slots by action. So this is what we've done for the dialect slot. In this case, you do have to include the slot part in your stories. Okay, Rasa core, blah, blah, blah. All right, so types of slots, because I think what I want to do is I want to change the types of my I think I want to change the types of the user-filled slots. I think I do not want them to be unfeaturized. I think I want only this dialect slot to be unfeaturized. Results in the feature in the slot being set to 1 if any value is set. Otherwise, the feature will be set to 0, no value set. User preferences where you only care whether or not they've been specified. And that is true for us at this point. So in the form, which is collecting this data from the user, I don't care what the data is at that point. I only care about the data, what the actual data that the user has provided is at the point where I'm trying to detect their dialect in the detect dialect action. So I think I'm going to set those to text and see if that work. Categorical. So this would work if we knew that people would only say like Coke, soda, and pop for a sweet carbonated beverage, and we knew they'd never say something like fizzy drink or what are some other words that people use for that? A malt, I guess. Phosphate, that's a word that somebody might use. They might say a phosphate. It's a little bit dated, but I think some people still say that. Float, that doesn't make sense. That's a number. Lists would be like if you were trying to set like a shopping list and you were listing out the 5 things that you needed. I don't think that's the best choice. There will not be any featurization of this slot, hence its value does not influence the dialog flow and is ignored when predicting the next action the bot should run. Yeah. And then we have custom slot types. So let's start out by trying, oops. Sorry, I messed up on my second screen. Let's start out by trying just making all of these text and see how that works. Text, and then text. So, stop my, my bot, and then we're gonna retrain real quick. And that shouldn't take long. So we're gonna retrain with a slightly different slots, and then we will see what if we can now say fizzy drink and it'll work. We'll find out. Let's see, Rachael. And by default, I believe the most recent model will always be used. Because you can see I have a variety of models that I have trained. Hi. Do I want to take a dialect quiz? Sure, love a dialect quiz. Oh, I'd say that's a wibbly wobbly. I wouldn't. Okay. What if it's just one word? Weeble. Yeah, okay, that's not gonna work. So it's still looking for an entity that we've already seen. I did think that that would work. So, what if I try something like what we have? What if I say pill bug with a space in it? Will that throw a fit? Action elicitation form set a slot type bug, which it never set during the training. This can throw off the prediction. Make sure to include training examples in your stories for the different types of slot this action can return. Remember, you need to set the slots manually in the stories by adding slot pill bug after the action. Interesting. So this is something that is happening with the text slots that was not happening with the unfeaturized slots. So, back. Sorry. I know that looks weird. Back to the docs we go. So, I just searched for slots and forms. If you do not define slot mappings, slots will only be filled by entities with the same name as the slot that are picked up from the user input. Okay, some slots like cuisine can be picked up using a single entity, but a form action can also support yes/no questions and free text input. That's what we want. The slot mapping methods define how to extract slot values from the user responses. Okay. So this is in the actions.py code. And I believe we already have a slot mappings function. Show me the function. Goodbye. Submit. Yep. Okay. So we already have a slot mappings function where it is taking the entity from the intent in form. And we want it to take sort of whatever text is returned. Yeah, let's see. So, feedback. Self from entity, entity feedback. So that would be similar to this where the entity is bug. Self.from text in quotes. We'll use the next user utterance to fill the text slot name, regardless of user intent if intent name is none, else only if user intent is intent name. If you want to allow a combination of these, provide them as a list, as in the example above. So I think I do want to provide a combination of them, because some section of people are going to say, you know, words that we already know are going to be used. And some section of people are going to say other things, and I want to treat those people who say other things as a single category at first, and maybe back later on we can go through and fold them in to our machine learning. A little bit more coffee. So right now we're getting things from intent. Nope, from entity. From entity, yes. We want to also add from text. So if we don't have that entity, we want to take in any text the user applies and save it and put it in the slot value. So, and we want to do that in a list, and .self from text. Copy that. So you are going to need to be in list, which is square brackets, and then okay, so now we have is the white space correct there? I guess it is. So now we have, for bug, we can either take it from a bug entity in the inform intent, or whatever text the user returns afterwards. And then for beverage, we want to do the same thing. Because ideally, we want the user to sort of do something that we expect them to do, and say something that we've already seen, because then we're going to be able to say with really good confidence what particular dialect region we think they're from. And I did mess up those commas extremely badly, and I'm pretty sure there does not need to be a comma after the last thing. Is that an error? Nope, that is just changes that I have made. All right, let's try... let's try, first of all, stopping this elicitation form action, because we're going to need to rerun that with our new code. So first of all, let's change directory into the correct directory. Yes, this is the correct directory. And let's retrain our model. Actually, real quick before we do that, there is something that I did want to change. So remember that we had this 2 utterances, one for greeting, one for starting quiz. I am going to delete the greet utterance here and just do the start quiz utterance. And same here, I'm just going to do the start quiz utterance. And then I also want to make sure that the start quiz utterance is good, and I believe that is in the domain, where I say what the utterance is. Doop, 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 doop. Ask Beverage, start quiz. There we go. Do you want to take a quiz to learn more about where people talk the most like you? Okay, I think that's good. And what we could do if we were feeling fancy is we could take the whatever the person says for the greeting and then respond back to them. So if they're like, howdy, we could be like, howdy. And if they say hi, we could say hi. But for right now, I think this will work. So let's retrain real quick. Only the templates section has been created. A new model with the updated templates will be created. Excellent. So let's run our actions so that the form will work. All right. And we have line 41, a syntax error. Yep, that would do it. All right. Now we're going to try running this actions again. All right, excellent. So you can see that we've registered the functions for our two classes is the word that I was looking for there, and got to just real slowly. What are you reflecting that's green? Because this looks a little bit see-through, and there's nothing in that direction that's green. Mysterious. All right, let's try this. Let's see if we can just say whatever and see if it'll work. Rachael, hit me. No model found. That would be because I am, yet again, in the wrong directory. Fascinating. Okay, noted. Do I have? I do. Okay, yeah. So I already had a Rasa server running locally. I already had a Rasa server running locally, and you can go bye-bye as well. I already had a Rasa server running locally, so when it tried to create a second server at the same point, it was like, there's already somebody here. Somebody's eating my oatmeal. Like the bears in Goldilocks. Nope, quit, nope, not what I wanted. So this will, Rasa run will start the server, and right now it's running again on the same local host. You could run it on any server you like, but it's not gonna, I would have to send requests to that server with the messages that I had, and then it would send me the responses back, and I just want to use it from the shell right now. So, let's start a new terminal, and let's change directory into the correct directory, and then we're gonna run it in the shell. Hey, excellent. All right. Hi. Interesting. So it's still, interesting. Did I? No, I didn't save it. Okay, noted. So I noticed that it was giving me the greeting and then also the dialect quiz prompt, and that's what used to be in here. As you can see, I used to have an additional utterance here, and I got rid of it. And I forgot to save this file. So when I retrained my bot, it did not consider the change story because it had not been saved. So we'll deal with that later. Yeah, I'd love to take a dialect quiz. Sorry to keep you waiting, bot. I'd call it a baby lobster. Just like my Grammy always used to say. Nobody calls it a baby lobster that I know of. All right. Oh, I call that a phosphate. And I'd say y'allins. David said, did you restart the actions? I did. Good call. All right. Noted. Okay. So it did successfully run the form. The form set all the slots. You need to set the slots manually in the stories by adding the slot second person plural y'allins after the action. I don't think I do is the thing. Because it is a form, and the form avoids us having to manually set the slots every time. So, good news, bad news. Good news, the arbitrary text worked. Bad news, it is not happy about it. Elicitation form set a slot type second person plural, which it never set during the training. This can throw off the prediction. Make sure to include training examples in your stories for the different types of slots this action can return. Remember, you need to set the slots manually in the stories by adding slot second person plural and y'allins, not something anybody says that I know of, after the action. So, elicitation form does set the slot type second person plural during the training. Let's check. Back to the documentation. I had it there the whole time. Cell from text, yeah. All right. From entity, from intent, from text, not intent, affirm. So I could say intent inform, possibly. But I don't know what the intent was. So let's look at this. Okay. Huh. Did it actually invoke the form? So the form isn't throwing any errors. So if it just didn't set the slots, we'd get errors back. But also, what should happen after it finishes the form here is that it should utter slot values, which it did not do. It should run this this function, also in actions.py, detect dialect, which right now just does something very dumb. And then it should tell us what the dialect is. And it didn't do either of those things. So I think that it's choking on this utter slot values here. Let's check out that utterance. So that utterance is defined in YAML. And it's here. Here are your answers: bug, bug, beverage, beverage, second person plural, second person plural. So this slot, it's setting second person plural to be y'allins. So we should be able to get that information back out. Make sure to include training examples in your stories from the different types of slots this action can return. Is it because it doesn't think it's the entity? It shouldn't matter, though, because this comes from a slot rather than an entity. Is that right? Let's see. We'll use the next utterance to fill the text slot name, regardless of user intent if intent name is none, else only if user intent is intent name. So it's a text slot, which I believe we have, yes, so these should also be text, and we are trying to fill them with text, so that shouldn't be the problem, hopefully. Validating user input, and there was validation that happened in the example, example Python code, but we took it all out because it was mostly like, is this a number? And we don't care about that particular thing. By default, validation only checks that the requested slot was successfully extracted from slot mappings. So, as the helper validation functions return dictionaries of slot names and values to set, you can set more slots than just the one you are validating from inside a helper validation method. However, you are responsible for making sure the extra slot values are valid. If nothing is extracted from the user's utterance for any of the required slots, an action execution rejection error will be raised, meaning that action execution was rejected, and therefore core will fall back on a different policy to predict another action, which is not the problem that we're getting. We're getting that the slot is successfully returned. It just doesn't know what to do with this text. And I've lost my, let's see if I can get it back, my window. I clicked out of it and it's gone forever. There we go. Not quite so forever as that. Okay. Of course, your users will not always respond with the information you ask of them. Okay. Form, name, restaurant form. So do I need to do both? Let's look at our stories again. So I have the elicitation form, and then I say I'm running. So I run the action elicitation form, and then I make sure that it's the right form. Yeah. And this is an example of someone who's just sort of talking in the middle of a form. And then the restaurant form is run again, and then they go through the bottom, and then when they're finished, the form is sort of shut off using this line. In some situations, users may change their mind in the middle of a form action and decide not to go ahead. Okay. It is strongly recommended that you build these stories using interactive learning. If you write these stories by hand, it is likely you will miss important things. Yes, I agree. So the sort of the Rasa way is that you get a minimal bot, and then you have people interact with it, and then you make it better by learning from those conversations. And my problem right now is that no one would want to use this because it's 3 questions, then it tells you you're from the US, so not the most exciting skill to interact with. The slot requested slot is automatically added to your domain as an unfeaturized slot. If you want to make it featurized, you need to add it to your domain file as a categorical slot. Just continuing to read the documents. I really did think just setting it to text would work. And it didn't not work. Alright. Okay, so the requested slot here is that's the slot that they've asked for, and then the user starts to ask questions. And I don't want to define these stories by hand. David says, debug by divide and conquer, remove items from the story or remove slots from the utterance responses and see what works. Yeah, we can. It feels to me that the problem is probably in forms. But yeah, let's try that. So let's try getting rid of these 2 lines. And we can revert that back and see if that helps. So let's stop. Let's try retraining real quick. And then let's try running it in the shell again. All right, hi. So now we'll see if the problem is in this utter slot values utterance or if it's somewhere else. Sure. Okay, and you can see the greeting is gone now. So that's nice. So let's do the first 2. Let's play fair. Let's say things that I provided in the training data. because I'm pretty sure that is an intent that is directly provided in the training data. It is. It sure is. Interesting. So it's not that I am providing unseen examples. So these are all examples that it's seen before directly in the training data. And it looks like this is an error. Okay. Interesting. Because we just added a way for that slot to be filled. We didn't take away that it could be an entity. So I'm going to go back to the stories and undo this and say that. Because I do want those to happen. Okay, so... So the problem seems to be happening in the submit method, I would guess. So let's try... ye old print debugging. And this will show up in the action server and not in the users. So the text that's printed out here will show up in the action server and it won't show up in our register function, from text, self from text. So let's restart. And that will tell us whether or not we actually started the submit function or if there's a problem somewhere else. So let's go back to the foreign.bat directory and run from the shell and see what happens now. I'm going to do a mix of things that it's seen before directly. And things that it has definitely never seen before. Okay, and so the form definitely finished running, and then okay, so the dispatcher did run. It seems like the problem is with this utterance template, I guess, because it should utter slot values, yeah. And then if we look at utter slot values in our domain file, there we go. Yeah, here's the slots. Interesting. Okay, so our actions are being, so our form is running all the way through. Good. Our form is being submitted. The information is being passed to the dispatcher. We're getting the utter submit. Oh yeah, we knew that. That's because that's all done. What if we don't utter the slot values? What if that's the error? So let's see if that's the problem. And we haven't changed the actions except to delete the printing debugging stuff, so we can ignore that for now. So let's stop you. Real quick train. And again, it's just updating the template, so it shouldn't take that long. And then run again. See if this works. Hi. Yes, I'd love to take a quiz. We get to take this excellent dialect quiz yet again. Let's try and make sure of things it hasn't seen, including yow. All right, so now it is submitting the form. That happened. All right, so this is not the slot utterance that's causing the problems. It is the detect dialect and then the utter dialect value. We started submit, we dispatched. Okay, so that's all good to go. So some things I'm thinking about. One thing is that in our detect dialect, down here, I do want to get rid of this. Goodbye. And this. Goodbye. We do this, we get the slot from the tracker, which we should be able to get. I may set a slot type second person plural, which it never set during training. Why didn't it set it during training? Entity bug, intent, inform. Entity beverage, intent, inform, or from text. Bug, beverage, second person plural. So these are the slots. These are the entities. Is the problem that the entity in the slot has the same name? Not in the stories. Domain. Oh, goodness. Excuse me. Pardon me. Okay, so we have these slots that have these names. David says, I don't understand, suggests a user input. Is it reaching the thank you part of the story? That is a good question. Let's see what happens if I say thanks. Weird. Very weird. So it looks like it's trying. It's still trying to set second person plural. So here it's saying that it did set a slot type, and this suggests that it didn't set the slot type. It didn't set the slot because then when we say something else, it tries to put it in that slot. Let's you know what? Let's update our actions. So let's say that we only want from text when it is the inform entity. Sorry, not the inform entity, the inform intent. Okay. All right. Let's see if that helps, because it could just be taking in so it's taking in text of any intent, and then it's setting the slot to that. All right, new, I want to stop. That's nothing. There we go, try that. Meanwhile, we're gonna need to kill and restart the action server. All right, nothing has changed. That's fine. Change direction. I would be surprised if that was the case because of the example that has just the from text option. But let's try this again. Let's see what happens when we say we only want to get it from the intent. Oh. Do we get the same error? Do I? Are you sure that I do need to set this manually in the story? Well, let's finish it and see what happens. I may need to phone a friend on this one. That's I don't think anyone would say that. I don't know, maybe somebody would. Okay, new error. Failed to extract second person plural with action elicitation form. Which is not surprising because that's the one where I just sort of did something that had never been seen before in the training data. Okay, so we're getting fairly involved here. Let's see. Conditional sort logic. Excuse me. I cannot mute the mic or it will desynchronize the visual. Excuse me. The visual and the audio, and that drives me nuts, and I'm assuming also bothers other people, so. Yeah, let's try the debug flag. That seems like a useful thing to do. Rasa shell. What's the debug flag? Showing checkpoints and their connections between story blocks in a file called Rasa train. Python logging be verbose, be quiet. Okay, so this is for training, but what about when I run it? Debug plots, Rasa interactive. I really mostly care about shell. Debug plots, Rasa shell debug. Okay, let's try this. No, move over. There we go. So stop you real quick. Once more with debugging. Sure. Okay. So we've started the form. So far, so good. Let's try Pillbug here. All right. Recreating tractor for default, received message Pillbug. We're pretty sure it is in form, which makes sense because it is an exact example of something that was given as a, it was exactly in the training data. Entity, so it extracted an entity, Pillbug. It extracted the entity bug, value Pillbug, and it set bug to none. So it knows the requested slot is bug, and it did not set it. And we are going to use the memoization policy, next form elicitation, and then it did the, okay, so it's not, oh no, so it did, okay. So it did set bug as Pillbug. Okay, and then, listening. Okay, so let's say something that phosphine, that I don't think that we don't have in the training example, in the training data. So phosphine, running a tracker, it thinks affirm, confidence 3, no entities. Okay, so the intent has been misclassified. This should be inform. So that could definitely be part of the difficulty here. Okay, yeah, and it failed to extract slot beverage. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of this requirement that it is from inform because I would want it to, and this won't be updated yet, I want it to accurately extract that even if it thinks that it's affirming or a different intent. So that is helpful. And what happens, I didn't understand you, please try something else. So let's say it's a Coke. See how that works. Okay. Requested slot beverage. Form policy, conversation, inform, yes, and it identifies the entity beverage, and it should add it to the slot beverage. Okay, yes, excellent. And then we've requested second person plural, none. So if I said y'all here, it's requested second person plural. And what does it think that the intent was, that the user intent was? Inform, okay, that's correct. It's extracted this entity. It's extracted the value for the entity. All right, and did it save it? All done. All right, and it did, yes, okay, so it has been correctly set. But it looks like here it has not been set. So this is a little odd. So it correctly extracted it here and set it, but then it looks like it wasn't saved, and then the form exited. Interesting. Okay. So I think I'm going to phone a friend on this one because I'm not entirely sure I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So it works for sure if I have entities that I've been given before. But once I start to include this, hey, if you don't find an entity, give me anything that you see, any text that the user inputs, that's where we seem to be running into problems. But we did a lot today. We corrected our stories and utterances so it'll flow a little bit better, hopefully, in the future. And we updated our slots to be text rather than you know what? Let's try making these unfeaturized. Let's see if that will help. That could be the problem that we did. So let's stop you. Goodbye. Yeah. Oh, interesting. It also failed to extract slot beverage, even though in the debug mode, definitely it was at some point set to beverage. Fascinating. Okay. So let's kill our action server. Let's real quick retrain. So all that we trained this time is that we reset our the type that our slots are from text to unfeaturized, and that could be the problem potentially. So it has been trained. 10 out of 10. Happy to hear that. Let's run our actions, and then what's it? Debug, I'm pretty sure. And then run our bot in debug. David says, when the docs say intent should be set to none, does that mean inside the brackets like you just did from text intent equals none? Let's go back real quick to the docs. So the intent would be, the examples that I was working from was this self from text, which just has nothing in the arguments. And then also these ones where for each from intent, the intent is specified, if that answers your question. And hopefully hopefully that'll work. Let's find out. Sure. Love quizzes. Love dialect quizzes. Love to take it 20 times a day. Let's try. So we didn't get the errors that we have been getting. Errors, I'd say more warnings. Let's just quickly little. All right. Y'allins, which I think is not, again, a thing that people probably say. Could be wrong on that. Give me the slots. Excellent. Except I think I removed slots. Okay, so if we look at the slots that we've set here in debug mode, phosphate, fillbug, and second person plural. Okay, so the problem was that I should have made my slots unfeaturized. Instead, I made them text, and that was causing issues. So if you are extracting from text, if you're extracting your slots from text, whatever the text is that the user inputs, they cannot be of type text. No. You know what the problem probably was? It was probably these ones where I'm saying that it's an entity. And then I was like, but also it's just going to be plain text. Please don't mess with it. Maybe. That seems likely. Okay. It works. Which is delightful to me. And I am going to... Did we get an utterance of slot values? Do y'all remember? So we definitely got all done here. And here are the current slot values, but I do not think they were uttered. Memorization 16. Fallback option, current slot values, calling action, memorization policy. Okay, so it looks like it's not uttering the slots for us, but that's okay, because they have been correctly set, as we can see from the debug mode. All right, it works. So now the utterances, let's just do it one more time without the debug. So now the utterance should be recorded if there's no entity that we recognize. So let's quickly go through it one more time. Love to take a dialect quiz. Please hit me up with that. I'm gonna call him Sir Francis. Had to think about that one for a second. Oh, that's a phosphine. And now I'm interested to see, well, I'm not in debug mode, so I can't see it, whether it's phosphine or that's a phosphine that's been extracted. And this one, I'll do a regular one. Are you all ready to go? All done. Am I going to get my slots? I'm not going to get my slots. That's okay. So, I do need to figure out why I'm not getting this utter slot values actually done. Did I retrain after changing that back? I might not have retrained after changing that back. But we are correctly setting the slots to be whatever the user utters if it is not a recognized entity. So for some reason, I thought that was going to be extremely fast to do. But I think I have, as always, underestimated my own capacity to struggle. But we did get it working, which is very exciting. So, fingers crossed, hopefully we will have the data soon to make this work. And I might actually set up like a small quiz on like Google Forms or something, just so I have a smaller data set to work with if people are interested in taking it. Yeah, we'll see. David said, so if you want the slot to affect the flow, only then should we think about type equals text and manually setting slots in stories. I think so. Because I think unfeatureized will just be like set to something else. Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. But again, I am very much learning about Rasa and beginning to understand the code base better and better. So thank you, everybody, for joining me on my learning voyage today. I think today was less of a struggle bus and more of the persistence paddle boat that we were on. Next time will be Friday, and I'm hoping we'll have some sort of data so that we can actually do the machine learning part that will make this fun to do, as opposed to just sort of an exercise in text entry or voice entry once it's up on Alexa. David says, for collecting any text, it's self.fromText. I think so, yeah. And that would work if you were passing that to something else, but if you then wanted to be like something else. I was trying to come up with an example where you would collect random text and then want to use that in your flow. But things like names are pretty, like an entity extractor for, proper names is pretty common. So yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Stop my servers. Goodbye. And you. Goodbye. It's running locally, so it's not that big of a deal, but once I start to run this on a server, what costs money, that will be a little bit more important. Also, killing your server would stop other people from being able to use it. So if you are serving your bot to, say, customers, maybe don't do that. All right. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. We did the thing that I wanted to do, which is great. And hopefully next time we're going to get onto the machine learning, but it is dependent on data. Thank you for joining, everybody. Thank you for your help, David. It was very much appreciated. And I will see you all on Friday, same time, same channel, for more coding. I'll see you then. Bye.